the FBI, we have found out, has thwarted what would have been a potentially large terrorist attack in Dearborn, Michigan, or in the Michigan area. This was planned for tonight. This was planned for a Halloween attack. A tweet, a X post, if you will, came out this morning.
Appreciate it.
From Kash Patel. It said, this morning, the FBI thwarted a potential terrorist attack and arrested multiple subjects in Michigan who are allegedly plotting a violent attack over Halloween weekend. More details to come, thanks to the men and women of the FBI and law enforcement everywhere standing guard 24/7 and crushing our mission to defend the homeland. The FBI spokesperson confirmed this. The federal agents were in Dearborn and Inkster, Michigan last night. We want to assure our residents there's no threat to the community. And then he puts to have a happy and safe Halloween weekend. So this, again, is a big moment for the FBI to, of course, look, the idea of celebrating thwarting a terrorist attack, the fact that we are even having to do this is sad in general. But we know that this is probably happening a lot more than we even are aware of all the time. And this was a big enough one to cause enough stir to at least go out there and say it. But as you were, and Will and I were talking earlier, this at least should be giving you a bit more trust in this current iteration of the FBI.
And I think that's why it's important for statements like this to be released. Yes, we don't know how many times maybe in the past that the FBI thwarted a terror attack.
Sure, a lot.
And didn't publicize it. But the difference here is that people lost their faith in the institution so much over the last 4 years that these statements are necessary, because I don't feel like it's assumed anymore that the FBI is out there doing actual law enforcement, stopping terror attacks on the U.S. homeland. And it's a breath of fresh air when you see the director come out and say this and say, here's what we did. There was law enforcement activity. They've arrested individuals, and they have said there's no longer, we consider, a threat to the community in Michigan over Halloween weekend. I don't know that people would have felt the same way, even if they were coming out with those statements under the previous FBI. We know, I know you talked about yesterday, the Arctic Frost investigation. That's what the FBI was spending their time on under the past 4 years, under the last administration. They were going on witch hunts, and no pun intended on Halloween, but they were going on witch hunts. They were looking for ways to combat their political enemies, not stopping terror. Now, that's not to say they didn't stop terror, but the American people lost that faith in the FBI to do their core mission.
Yeah, they have to, we got to build back better. Well, that's what the trust in the FBI.
That's what it is? Is that the slogan?
That's the slogan of the new FBI. Kash Patel trademarked that. It is a moment we need to be looking at and being, look, everyone needs to be aware tonight and any kind of major event, of course, that this kind of thing can happen. And look, if we go back just 10 months ago, there was the attacks over New Year's Eve. There was all of those issues that have happened in the previous administration. Of course, there will be things that are going to happen during this administration. Let's not just be blind to the fact that everything is going to be caught. But when you had what could have been a significant tragedy, we also know the rhetoric that has come out of that specific area. And that's even beyond just an area of your town that happens to have a larger group of people who are Muslim. It is not about that. This has been an area that has been really a hotbed for a lot of issues. Now, we don't know who was arrested.
Right.
I don't want to just purely speculate, but of course, that is where people's minds are headed.
We will know more details when the filings come out, when there's charging documents and things like that we will see eventually. But that these arrests were made, the fact that it is a Halloween attack, like the New Year's Eve attacks, things like that, the people that are out in big crowds on New Year's Eve are typically adults that are out partying and doing revelry and things like that. But when you think about Halloween, as you brought up, that the easy targets where there could be people gathered together would typically be something that would have more children involved. And that is where you start to think about the worst case scenarios that the FBI was able to thwart here.
The work that Kash Patel is doing is phenomenal, because it's really just going down to basic ground police work and making the country safer. And he's being as transparent as he's able to be, as is the administration, especially with investigations. You can only be so transparent.
Right.
When you're actively, looking out these threats. But the terrorist attack specifically towards children is a very dangerous thing, because what's going to be the next thing to cause more division in this country and to sow more the seeds of division is attacks on children.
Right.
It's a very
Hunter, a lot of times the purpose of terror, knowing that a one-off attack or however it may reveal itself isn't necessarily going to bring down the country, right? It's going to be a horrific tragedy. But the attacks that Islamic radicals have been able to pull off on the United States aren't to the scale or purpose of something like 9/11. Now I feel like they are more to sow fear, to spread more discord, and to tear the country apart internally. And something like that would have a large effect, as Hunter brought up. But I also wanted to bring up what he said earlier, that it's great to see the job that Kash Patel is doing in the police work. A lot of times, Kash Patel, even in the conservative circle, gets the criticism from the right of not doing enough to go after the bad political actors that were, many of them, it very much looks like there were criminal activity or at least conspiracy activity under the previous administration and beyond. If we're only focused on that, and that's the only thing Kash Patel is focused on is accountability for those people, which I think is important, and we're seeing a lot of that come out, then he's not doing any better than the Christopher Wrays and the James Comeys. Because at the end of the day, that's not the only thing the FBI needs to be focused on. The FBI needs to be focused on stopping these things from happening. And I'm glad that he's showcasing it and saying, here's what we did. We have thwarted a terror attack. He's done this multiple other times where they've gone out and showcased the actual police work of the FBI, because that is the purpose of the FBI. I don't want it to just be investigating the things that happen under Arctic frost. I want to see that. Yeah. I want there to be teams dedicated to that. But if that's the entirety of the FBI, like it appears under politics, the previous administration, then it isn't keeping us safe. And I want the FBI to be an institution that keeps America safe, not that just finds out the corruption in previous administrations. Both are important, but they have to be able to do both at the same time.
Also, what happens if you start talking about these a little more publicly, it does, as we know, scare other people who are interested in doing damage and harm and terrorism to the United States, because it puts them on warning that there is the FBI ready to come and get them and arrest them even before their events happen. So, of course, part of thwarting terror is stopping other terror. So you put out these statements and guess what? Here's what happens. So if anyone's thinking about doing anything this weekend, you better watch out, because the FBI is watching very, very closely.